Well, yesterday, we took a captivating look at the U.S. National Intelligence Council's Global Trends series of reports. Today, we're venturing across the Atlantic to explore similar reports from the UK. These reports share some common ground with their American counterparts, but also bring a unique perspective with a touch more national security nuance. If you missed yesterday's episode, I encourage you to go back and listen. It will provide valuable context for today's discussion. So, buckle up as we embark on this fascinating journey together. And as always, stay safe.
All right. So let's dive into these geopolitical forecasts you've shared with me.
Sounds good.
We've got Integrated Review Refresh 2023, Global Strategic Trends out to 2055,
Yeah.
and Future Operating Environment 2035.
Okay.
It's like we're prepping for some kind of high-stakes strategy game with, like, decades-long consequences.
Absolutely. And what's striking is how each of these reports, despite looking at different time frames, right, they all zero in on this, like, central tension.
Okay.
The very nature of power is changing.
Okay.
And it's putting immense stress on the global system.
It's not just about who has, like, the biggest military anymore, is it?
No, it's not. No.
We're talking, like, shifting demographics,
Right.
AI, quantum computing, climate change.
Right.
These reports argue that these forces are going to redefine what it means to be powerful on the world stage.
Exactly. And it gets even more interesting when you consider, like,
Right.
when these reports were published. Global Strategic Trends was published back in 2014.
Yeah.
And it already foresaw this move toward multipolarity.
Okay.
Then you've got the Future Operating Environment 2035 report that came out in 2018,
Right.
focusing more on how technology will be a game changer in this new world order.
Okay.
And now the Integrated Review Refresh 2023 shows how the UK is trying to adapt its strategy in light of all these trends.
So it's not just a theoretical discussion. We're seeing these shifts play out, like, in real time with countries adjusting their strategies and alliances. It feels like, for those of us working in this field, that the ground is constantly shifting beneath our feet.
Absolutely. And I think one of the most important takeaways here is the need for a more nuanced understanding of power.
Okay.
It's no longer just about hard power and, military strength or economic dominance.
Yeah.
We're seeing the rise of soft power, the ability to influence through culture, ideas, and institutions. And then there's this whole new dimension of what some people call sharp power, using information and technology to manipulate and coerce.
So the report suggests that success in this new landscape will require mastering all three: hard, soft, A&D sharp power.
You got it.
It makes me wonder how well are Western democracies equipped to compete
That's a great question.
in a world where authoritarian regimes might have an advantage in areas like sharp power.
It's a crucial question.
Yeah.
And it's one that the Integrated Review Refresh grapples with directly. It emphasizes the need to counter disinformation and protect democratic values, which is a tacit acknowledgement of this challenge. But it also talks about building a network of liberty with like-minded partners, essentially leveraging the UK's soft power to build alliances against these authoritarian challenges.
So instead of just trying to outcompete rivals in their own game,
Exactly.
it's about building a different kind of playing field altogether.
Yes.
One that favors democratic values and norms.
100%.
But let's not forget about the technological dimension.
Right.
Future Operating Environment 2035 paints a pretty stark picture of how technology, particularly AI, will revolutionize warfare.
It really will.
It's not just about drones and cyber attacks anymore, is it?
No.
We're talking about autonomous weapon systems,
Right.
AI-powered decision-making, and even the potential for cognitive enhancement of soldiers.
It's a whole new world.
And this raises some serious ethical considerations,
Well, it does.
which the report kind of acknowledges, but doesn't fully resolve.
Yeah.
So for you thinking strategically, this means anticipating how these technologies will not only change the way wars are fought, but also how they might blur the lines between war and peace. What happens when an AI system makes a decision that leads to escalation?
That's the million-dollar question.
It's a whole new set of risks and uncertainties.
It is.
That we as analysts need to factor into our assessments.
For sure.
We can't just rely on the old playbooks anymore.
No, we can't.
And another key point from Future Operating Environment 2035 is the increasing difficulty of distinguishing between state and non-state actors in this new battle space. Think about terrorist groups potentially gaining access to advanced AI or cyber capabilities.
It's a scary thought.
It makes attribution of attacks much more difficult.
Yes.
And that has huge implications for deterrence and response.
Huge.
So it's not just about identifying potential adversaries anymore.
Right.
It's about understanding their capabilities, their motivations, and their potential access to these game-changing technologies.
The whole new ball game.
And let's not forget about the human element.
Right, the human factor.
As Global Strategic Trends points out, demographics will play a huge role in shaping the geopolitical landscape.
Absolutely.
Aging populations in the West, booming youth populations in Africa and parts of Asia. This will impact everything from economic growth and migration patterns to social stability and political power.
No question.
So from your perspective, how does this demographic shift impact your assessments? Do you see it as primarily a source of risk? Or does it also present opportunities?
I think it's both.
Okay.
It's definitely a risk in the sense that it can exacerbate existing tensions, like competition for resources or social unrest. But it's also an opportunity. A young, dynamic population can drive innovation and economic growth. The challenge is managing these demographic transitions in a way that harnesses the potential while mitigating the risks.
That sounds like a lot of sleepless nights.
It can be,
For those of us in charge of crafting policy and strategy,
right,
we need to be thinking about how to navigate a world where the traditional rules of the game are constantly evolving.
They are.
And speaking of rules, let's talk about climate change.
All right.
All three reports highlight it as a major threat multiplier.
They do.
But they offer different perspectives on its implications.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Global Strategic Trends, being the oldest report, focuses more on the traditional security implications. Like competition for resources and climate-induced migration leading to conflict. But Future Operating Environment 2035 takes it a step further, suggesting that climate change could actually accelerate technological development.
Oh, interesting.
As countries seek solutions to these challenges.
I see.
So climate change could become a driver of innovation, not just a source of instability.
Interesting.
I wonder if it also presents opportunities for international cooperation, as countries are forced to work together to address this shared threat.
Could be.
That's a fascinating perspective.
Yeah, it is.
And the Integrated Review Refresh hints at this as well, emphasizing the need to build climate resilience, both domestically and through international partnerships. It sees climate change as a strategic priority, not just environmental concern.
Interesting.
All right, we've covered a lot of ground already.
We have.
But we've just scratched the surface.
Yeah.
These reports offer a wealth of insight.
They do.
And I'm eager to dig deeper into some of the specific findings and implications.
Let's do it. So let's delve into some of those specifics. One thing that really stands out to me from the Integrated Review Refresh is the UK's evolving approach to China. It's like this real balancing act, right? Recognizing the economic importance of the relationship, but at the same time, calling out China's increasingly assertive actions on the world stage.
The report uses some pretty strong language.
Yeah, it does.
Calling China an epoch-defining challenge. But it also emphasizes the need for a constructive and predictable relationship. How do you interpret this seemingly contradictory stance?
I think it reflects the complex reality of dealing with a rising power like China. You know, there are areas of cooperation, particularly on issues like trade and climate change. But there are also areas of fundamental disagreement, particularly when it comes to human rights, intellectual property, and regional security.
So it's about compartmentalizing the relationship.
In a way.
Engaging where possible, but also being prepared to push back when necessary.
Exactly.
For someone like you advising policymakers. How do you navigate that tightrope?
Well, it requires a nuanced understanding of China's motivations and objectives. And it's important to remember that China is not a monolithic entity. You know, there are different factions within the Chinese leadership, each with their own perspectives and priorities.
Right.
And it's important to understand those internal dynamics when crafting policy.
It sounds like a lot of intelligence gathering and analysis.
It is.
Just to keep up with the internal politics of one country.
Yeah, it's a full-time job.
But that speaks to the complexity.
It does.
Of this new geopolitical landscape.
Absolutely.
And it's not just about China, is it?
No, it's not.
Global Strategic Trends talks about the potential for instability
right.
in other regions as well.
Yeah, the report highlights several potential flashpoints, including the Middle East, where conflicts over resources and ideology could intensify. And then there's the risk of renewed tensions in Eastern Europe as Russia seeks to reassert its influence in its near abroad.
These are regions where we've already seen conflict and instability in recent years.
Yeah.
What makes them particularly concerning going forward?
Well, in the Middle East, it's the combination of factors. You've got these long-standing sectarian divisions, the rise of extremist groups, and competition for dwindling resources, particularly water. Climate change is exacerbating these tensions, making the region even more volatile.
And in Eastern Europe, it's the unresolved conflict in Ukraine.
Yeah.
Russia's growing military assertiveness and the potential for NATO expansion to trigger a Russian response.
The powder keg.
And then you have this added layer of cyber and information warfare, which Russia has demonstrated a willingness to use in both regions.
Absolutely. They've shown they're not afraid to use it.
So it's a mix of traditional security threats with these newer, more asymmetric forms of conflict.
Hybrid warfare, as some people call it.
It makes me think about the Future Operating Environment 2035 report. And its predictions about how technology will further blur the lines between war and peace.
That report really forces us to rethink our traditional conceptions of warfare.
It does.
It's no longer just about armies clashing on battlefields. It's about cyber attacks that can cripple critical infrastructure, disinformation campaigns that can sow discord and undermine trust, and autonomous weapons systems that can make life or death decisions without human intervention.
It's a chilling picture of the future of conflict.
It can be,
And it raises some profound ethical questions.
It does.
About the role of technology in warfare.
Absolutely.
How do you reconcile those ethical concerns with the need to maintain a credible deterrent in this new environment?
It's a difficult balance. On the one hand, we can't afford to fall behind technologically. We need to develop advanced capabilities to deter potential adversaries and defend ourselves if necessary. But we also need to ensure that these technologies are developed and used responsibly in a way that minimizes civilian casualties and upholds international law.
So it sounds like a call for a new set of norms and regulations.
It is.
Governing the use of these emerging technologies in warfare.
100%.
And those norms need to be developed through international dialogue and cooperation. Involving not just states, but also tech companies, academics, and civil society organizations.
All stakeholders need to be at the table.
It's a complex challenge.
It is.
But one that we can't afford to ignore.
Absolutely not. The stakes are too high.
And speaking of high stakes, let's shift gears to something that impacts every single person on the planet. The global economy. Global strategic trends. Paints a bit of a mixed picture here. Suggesting that while economic power is shifting eastward, there's still potential for growth and prosperity in the West.
The report highlights the rise of Asia, particularly China and India, as economic powerhouses. But it also emphasizes the importance of innovation and technological advancement for continued Western economic success.
So it's not a zero-sum game.
No, it's not.
It's possible for both the East and the West to prosper in this new global economy.
I think so.
But what are the implications for someone like you analyzing economic trends and advising businesses?
It means understanding the interconnectedness of the global economy.
It's
no longer about national economies operating in isolation. It's about global supply chains, cross-border investments, and the flow of ideas and technology across borders.
So it's about identifying opportunities for collaboration and partnership?
Yes.
But also understanding the risks and vulnerabilities associated with this interconnectedness.
You can't have one without the other.
And it's about adapting business strategies to this new reality.
Right.
Companies need to be agile, innovative, and globally minded to succeed in this environment.
I agree.
It's a lot to take in, isn't it?
It is. It can feel overwhelming at times.
Shifting power dynamics, technological disruption, climate change, economic uncertainty.
Yeah.
It can feel overwhelming.
It can be hard to stay optimistic sometimes.
And for someone working in geopolitics,
Yeah.
it can be difficult to stay optimistic amidst all these challenges.
It's true. But amidst all the challenges, there are also reasons for hope.
Okay.
Global strategic trends actually ends on a relatively positive note,
Really?
suggesting that the future is not predetermined.
Okay.
The choices we make today will determine the course of events.
So it's not about passively accepting the trends outlined in these reports.
No.
It's about actively shaping the future we want to see.
Exactly.
And that's where the integrated review refresh comes in.
Right.
It's not just a document outlining challenges and threats.
No.
It's a blueprint for action, a strategy for navigating this complex landscape
Yeah.
and building a more secure and prosperous future.
I like that. A blueprint for action.
And it's a reminder that we're not just analysts observing the world from afar.
No, we're not.
We're participants.
Rare.
And our actions, no matter how small,
Right.
can make a difference.
Absolutely. And that's a powerful message to keep in mind.
Okay, so we've talked about these like seismic shifts reshaping the geopolitical landscape.
Yeah.
But for you, it's not just about understanding the trends, right?
Right.
It's about figuring out the so what.
Yeah, the implications.
What do these shifts actually mean for someone
Okay.
like on the front lines of global affairs?
Well, I think the key takeaway, and
Right.
it's something that comes up again and again in these reports,
Mhm.
is that we're moving into an era of persistent instability.
Okay.
The old certainties,
Right.
the neat categories of the Cold War, those are gone.
Oh.
And that means that the risks are harder to calculate, the
Right.
opportunities are more fluid,
Okay.
and adaptability becomes absolutely paramount.
Future Operating Environment 2035
Yep.
uses this term continuous competition.
Yes. Yes.
It's almost like we're never truly at peace.
Right.
Just constantly maneuvering for advantage in multiple domains.
Exactly.
How does that change the way someone like you approaches strategic planning?
Well, it requires a much more
Yeah.
dynamic and agile approach.
Okay.
The old linear models of planning where you try to predict the future and lay out a fixed course of action,
Right.
those just aren't sufficient anymore.
Okay.
You need to be constantly scanning the horizon,
Right.
identifying potential disruptions, and being prepared to adjust course very quickly.
It's almost like we need to be comfortable with a certain level of ambiguity,
Yes,
accepting that we can't control every outcome.
absolutely. And that can be a difficult shift
Right.
for organizations that are used to operating
Yeah.
in a more predictable environment.
Right.
But the integrated review refresh suggests that even large institutions like the UK government
Yeah.
are recognizing the need for this kind of adaptive thinking.
I'm also struck by the emphasis on partnerships in all three reports.
Yeah.
It's not just about states anymore, is it?
No, it's not.
We're seeing the rise of non-state actors,
Absolutely.
from NGOs to tech companies to even individual influencers,
Right.
wielding significant power and influence.
Yeah. They're major players now.
The integrated review refresh talks about building a network of liberty.
Yeah,
But I think that concept applies more broadly.
I agree.
Success in this new landscape will require building coalitions. Not just with traditional allies,
Right.
but with anyone who shares your interests and values, even if they're not a nation state.
Exactly.
So it's about building bridges,
It is.
even with actors that might have seemed irrelevant or even adversarial in the past.
Yeah, you need to be open to new possibilities.
And that requires a different kind of diplomacy,
It does.
one that is less formal, more agile, and able to operate across multiple domains.
I think that's a great point.
We've talked about a lot of daunting challenges,
We have.
but these reports also highlight some potential opportunities.
Yeah, they do.
Future Operating Environment 2035, despite its focus on the future of warfare,
Right.
actually suggests that technology could also help us address some of the world's most pressing problems.
It's not all doom and gloom.
Yeah.
The report highlights the potential of AI and other emerging technologies
Okay.
to tackle issues like climate change, poverty, and disease.
So it's not just about using technology to fight wars.
No.
It's also about using it to solve problems and make the world a better place.
It's about using it for good.
It's almost like a call for a more optimistic and proactive approach to geopolitics.
I think so.
Instead of just reacting to threats,
Right.
We can actively shape the future we want to see.
Yes.
By leveraging these new tools and ideas.
We have the power to create the future we want.
And it brings us back to the human element.
It always does.
As global strategic trends reminds us, ultimately, it's people who make decisions, who drive change, and who determine the course of history.
People are the key.
So for those of us listening,
yeah,
working in this complex and ever-changing field, the takeaway is clear.
Okay.
We need to be adaptable.
Absolutely.
We need to build partnerships.
Yes.
And we need to be proactive in shaping the future we want to see.
Couldn't agree more.
And, perhaps most importantly,
yeah,
we need to keep learning, keep questioning, and keep engaging in these critical conversations.
That's essential.
Because the more we understand these complex dynamics,
right,
the better equipped we'll be to navigate them.
Yeah.
And make a positive impact on the world.
I think that's a great way to sum it up.
Well, that's a great note to end on.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking this deep dive with me.
It's been a pleasure.
And I encourage all of you listening to continue exploring these reports and the ideas they raise.
They're really thought-provoking.
The future is not predetermined.
No, it's not.
It's up to each of us to shape it.
We all have a role to play.
Yeah.